Well, let's get to our conversation this afternoon. The Nigerian Employers Consultative Association, NECA, has raised the alarm over the deepening impact of high inflation and rising living costs on workers and businesses, warning that the country's industrial relations system is nearing a breaking point. Director General of NECA and member of the International Labour Organization's governing body, Mr. Adewale Smart Oyerinde, said this in a policy statement that inflation crisis has eroded workers' purchasing power, intensified wage disputes, and heightened labor tensions across key sectors. According to him, high inflation has severely eroded workers' purchasing power, making wages disputes more frequent, urgent, and difficult to resolve as employers face parallel hikes in operational costs. He noted that the economic pressure created by recent macroeconomic policies, especially the removal of fuel subsidies, has placed unprecedented stress on both workers and employers. My guest, live from our Abuja studios, is the Director General of the Nigerian Employers Consultative Association, NECA, Mr. Adewale Smart Oyerinde. DG, good afternoon. How are you today?
Thank you. Good afternoon, and thank you for having us. I'm fine. And you?
Yes, I'm all right. It's good to see you down from the city of Abuja. DG, I think I should just follow my introduction, looking at recent trade disputes and how it affects a stabilizing economy like Nigeria. Where do we stand with this back and forth with labor and issues around wages and all?
Thank you, and good afternoon once again. You know, the reality is this, and whether we like it or not, we just have to live with that reality, that globally, you cannot achieve any reasonable economic growth, any reasonable measure or tangible, sustainable measure of economic growth, except the industrial relations space, the relationships in the workplace, the dynamics is well managed and well as given the kind of attention that it deserves. Because you need a peaceful industrial relations environment for productivity to have meaning, for development to have meaning, and for growth to have meaning. So until we address those fundamental issues, we probably will not experience the kind of growth that we have. You know, the issue that happened of recent, thank God there's a peace now, peace of the graveyard, if you call it that, within the context of the Nupeng, the oil and gas, the Nupeng, Pengasan, and the Dangote issue. No, those are just symptoms of a deeper issue. We have ASUU also starting going on strike, warning strike yesterday or 2 days ago. No, those patches of industrial relations crisis are symptoms of a bigger problem. While in the ecosystem, that's the labor and industrial relations ecosystem, conflict is a given. That there will always be conflict. You cannot escape conflict because our interests are different, our expectations are different. But within that same ecosystem, there are structures, frameworks that the people in that ecosystem, who I would call the tripartite or social partners, there are structures that we have also created for ourselves to regulate or to arrest, as we call it sometimes, those crises. But somehow it seems the center is not holding. It seems there is a proliferation of actions and counter-actions, sometimes arbitrary action without respect for those institutions, which is the core issue that I think and our association think we should address. The issue of the parties of the crisis, they are just symptoms of a bigger problem that all of us as stakeholders in that labor and industrial relations ecosystem and government itself that we must sit down and really address. Without a peaceful industrial relations environment, you can hardly talk of any sustainable or tangible growth.
The issues on ground in Nigeria now in particular. Many would say it is the removal of subsidy and, of course, liberalization of the foreign exchange market that has put us where we are. Talking about high prices, high cost of PMS, which, again, I think is on the high side. As of today, in some places in Lagos, it's selling above 900 naira. Again, that's talking about PMS. And some will tell you that it takes time to address challenges like this. But labor unions will come up and say, no, we want this, we want this, we want this at that very time. Now, when government is also trying to say they're trying to manage spending, if I'm allowed to use that word. So how do we marry this? Talking about taking time and understanding government too, do you think we have that level of understanding between both parties to understand that we are in a reform period? Even the IMF agreed to this, acknowledged this, that Nigeria is in a reform period, and it takes time to get to that point where government can, in quotes, 100% address all of the demands of labor.
You know, one of the fundamental elements in the context of the relationship at work is the imperative for trust. Now, the reforms that we are currently going through, are they necessary? Absolutely, they are necessary. Is it imperative? Is it expedient that the first subsidy is removed at the point where it was done? Absolutely, it was expedient. In fact, for the last 10 years, NECA has been advocating that, look, the first subsidy should be removed in view of the complexities and the shenanigans that transfers the whole value chain of the subsidy. So is it necessary for us to do that? Yes, it was necessary. Was it necessary for us to remove the dual exchange rate, liberalize the market? It was necessary because we all know what was happening. You can, some people are buying forex, dollars for 400, 450 naira, and then they cross over across the street to Bureau de Change and start selling the same dollars for 800, 900 naira. People are ripping the system. So was it necessary to embark on that reform? It was necessary. Now, the critical issue is this. Do we, or the people, labor, civil societies, do we trust government enough to believe that the reforms are necessary? Do we trust government enough to believe that government will do what exactly government said it will do? And the deficit of trust doesn't start with this administration. You know, it's what you have seen from past administration. The crisis we have with ASUU probably did not start with this administration. It is the backlog of negotiated agreements, breaking of agreements, reneging on agreements over time that has led to a massive deficit of trust within the context of the labor and industrial ecosystem. So it is that balance that we need to create. And to achieve that balance, we cannot run away from what I would simply call social dialogue. You know, it's a key component, a driver within the context of this ecosystem. We must continue to share perspectives. Labor's demands, are they valid within the context of the realities of labor? We say an average worker, inflation rate has made nonsense of the purchasing power of an average worker. The minimum wage is also facing these challenges within the context of how much the 70,000 naira can echo. Now, for the average worker, is his reality valid, or is his desire for more income, is it valid? Absolutely is valid. For the employer, the employer's resistance sometimes to increase wages proportionately, is it valid? It's also valid because of cost of funds, regulatory challenges, access to capital, forex issues. Is it valid for the employer? Valid. Now, the need to embark on reforms, because government also have to stabilize the macro and the microeconomic environment, so that there's this balance we need to create. So it's government's cry that, look, we need to do these reforms in order to save the economy. Is it also valid? Absolutely, yes, it is valid. But we need to create that balance, and that balance can only be achieved through effective communication, through social dialogue, so that government will make the stakeholders to understand this is what we are trying to do. These are the timelines for achieving this. And everybody keeping to their words and remain focused within the context of building this project, this Nigerian project. I think we can achieve more. But I think there's deficit of trust between labor and government, and between some other stakeholders and government, which has led to sometimes the breaking down of communication, and then everybody reacts within the context of what is available to him. But in those reactions, and that is our concern, employers can react, workers can react, government can react, but those reactions must be within the context of the frameworks that we have set for us. There are laws, there are regulations, there are conventions of the ILO, there are recommendations by the ILO. We must express our grievance, we must express our displeasure within the framework of the laws. And within the context of our ecosystem, the Nigerian Labor Law, the Trade Dispute Act, the ILO conventions and recommendations, those grievances must be expressed within the context of those frameworks. Anything out of that, it doesn't have a place in the context of the industrial relation system that we all aspire to have.
Interesting stuff. I think the big one now, well, it has been put to rest. It was that the Pengassan and Dangote saga, which almost affected crude oil production and all of that. And even as a last check from the NUPRC, I saw that there was a bit of drop in our crude oil production for the month of September, I guess, about 1.5 million barrels per day. And everyone says Pengassan should be held responsible. So I'm going to put you on the spot at this point now. What do you make of that action of Pengassan? Some said it was too swift, looking at the way they shut down the entire system almost immediately. Some said, well, maybe more dialogue would have been put into it before that action was taken. I don't know how that comes to you or what you make of it. I know you have more information than I do.
Well, from our perspective, I think every action has consequences, basically. And as we have said, and we hold that position very strongly, that whatever grievance we have, those grievances must be expressed within the context of the framework of the laws and regulation that is that guides this surveying. So any action that goes out of that realm of the laws, that tends to make rubbish of the laws of the land, or that tends to make rubbish of the whole framework that guides our ecosystem, absolutely NECA will not support that. So that action for us, within the context of the law, and for what we've also had, there is other regulations or laws that guides the free trade zones. I think it's just important that irrespective of our grievance, irrespective of the position we hold, no matter how strongly we hold those positions, the reaction must be within the context of the law. Anything out of it, it's tantamount to breaking the law with consequences that comes with those actions. So that is the position that we hold, and that is the position that we still hold even till tomorrow.
All right, before we wrap this up, let's talk about the recent reduction in rates by the CBN. I know we've been talking about this since the Apex Bank has held on to that stance of, reduction in rates and all, but we see that even from the United States Fed and, other markets, we've started to see reduction in rates gradually, and Nigeria is also taking a cue from that. What do you make of that? It's just 50 basis points. Some expect that would also happen in the next meeting of the Monetary Policy Committee. But what would you say of it? Does it mean that we are beginning to move towards that end where we would see, a bit of relax with talking about rates from the Apex Bank?
Well, that is one of the things we have canvassed, the need to reduce the tightening, reduce the rates so that businesses can have more access to capital, so that the growth that we are currently experiencing can be all-inclusive. And we commend the CBN for listening, and we also commend the managers of the economy, the finance minister and the coordinating minister of the economy for the yeoman's job that they are doing. And we also use this opportunity to wish the Honorable Minister quick recovery. But there are positives that we have seen, and we just hope that that positive will be sustained so that the kind of growth that we expect, all-inclusive growth, that kind of growth we can experience it as quickly as possible. And the benefit of the reforms can start trickling down to the informal sector, trickling down to the average Nigerian worker, trickling down to the household as quickly as possible. Are we making progress? I think we are making progress. Are we in the right direction? It seems to be in the right direction. Do we need to sustain the pattern? I think we should sustain the pattern, deepen it a bit, so that the outcomes can be faster. And as of today, we had that dollars is now about 1,400 and something naira to $1. And we've not witnessed that kind of stability for a while. And progressively, it starts coming down. Is it at the rate that businesses expect it to be? Absolutely not. You know, I think naira should still find its value, its true value, progressively. But are we in the right track? Are we making some progress? Are we experiencing some level of stability and predictability in the macroeconomic space? I think we are, which is a good sign that I think the managers of the economy are doing some things right.
It is a good one. Now, let me ask you finally for your outlook for the entire market. We've seen GDP rates looking pretty well, the last figures we saw, and inflation is also tapering down. But the worry is that we are moving to the end of the year. And December, most times, inflation rate sometimes goes the other way. So what do you make of the end of year expectations of indicators for the end of the year?
Well, I will not focus on the end of the year. You know, sometimes when you focus too much on those timelines, those definitive timelines, the moment you start talking of Christmas, then the sellers, the product sellers, service providers, you know, everybody start thinking of increasing the price.
Yeah.
You know, whenever you achieve a milestone, a definitive milestone, end of the year, Christmas, Easter, Salah, you know, certain elements, psychological elements tend to influence what happens in the market. So I'd rather we look at the projection. What should we continue to do? What is working for us now within the context of stabilizing the market, within the context of bringing down the rate, irrespective of whether the year has ended or not? I think we should just continue in the path that has worked and deepen those processes, those reforms, those activities in that context, so that we don't focus on what happens at the end of the year. Let's just focus on what is working. We keep digging our foot into what is working, and we'll continue to make those definitive progress. Tying it to those milestones of end of the year, then a lot of psychological effects will start coming in, and people will start reacting, and those reactions will start affecting the market the way we usually do. For us, we identify what is working, we identify what is not working, we deepen what is working, and progressively we start eliminating those things that are not working. And one of my mentors said, you cannot continue, it's better to be inconsistent sometimes than persist in error. So whatever is not working, I think it's time for us to start chopping them off. And whatever we have identified as working, I think it's time for us to start deepening those things so that the growth and the development, inclusive growth and development that we crave, will happen faster than we expect.
All right, then, Mr. Adewale Smart Oyerinde, the Director General, Nigerian Employers Consultative Association. Thank you so very much, as always, having you on the program. We appreciate your time.
Thank you for having us once again, and good afternoon again.
Good afternoon. Do enjoy the rest of your day.